Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am so excited to be here and to be uploading this beautiful glam we did on my gorgeous angel Miriam. I have done Miriam's makeup about 4 months ago and her video went absolutely viral on all our socials, and I thought there's no way I'm not going to give you guys an in-depth tutorial on our glam together. This is the finished look right here, so if you want to learn how to create this effortless snatched glam, then keep on watching. As always, we are starting with Miriam's brows. I have tried to do a full face of makeup starting with base, and you know what? If I'm doing more of a very natural eye glam, I'm happy to do the base first, but eyes always has to come first. I think because I like to perfect the brows and lashes out of everything, and then I make everything work around it and make it as clean as possible. In saying that, we are starting with the brows here, and I went in with my hair wax, so the really strong one, and a disposable spoolie, getting right at the root of her brow hairs to make sure they are staying up and nice and lifted for the whole night. Now I'm going in with carving her brows. I'm using my favorite square flat paintbrush. I know I've randomly found this brush at Officeworks, and I looked at it and I was like, this would be great for carving brows. And I thought I was just kidding myself because I'm pretty sure it was like $5 when I bought it, or $6. And I grabbed it and I'm like, you know what, who cares? If it doesn't work, I'm sure I'll use it for something, maybe for like defining the eyeliner. But then when I did use it, it's literally the only brush. I've bought now 15 of them. It's the only brush I use for carving brows. It makes it so much easier. And it's the perfect amount of pressure it applies when you're applying the concealer, and the perfect shape. But yeah, it's very interesting. So if you find something that's not really a makeup brush and you want to try it, just try it. Who knows, it might be the best thing you ever do. But here I am using our Model Rock Times Krystal K concealer in shade, I'm pretty sure I used shade number 2 or 3 here. Carved her bottom brows as close as possible, and then her top. And as you can see, I did blend it into the center of her forehead. I like to do this because I want it to be the same color and same concealer I'm using on her top brow, so everything looks seamless on her face. And I let that set for a bit while I blend the rest of concealer on her eyelid. And this will be used as her eye base and will make sure her eyes don't crease or get oily during the night. The really important thing to remember is when you're blending the concealer all over your eyelid, you want to make sure you're getting that concealer all the way to the inner corner of your eyes, whether it passes on your nose or on your under eyes. Don't be scared to do that because later on you can remove that when you're doing the base makeup, but you want to make sure you get most of the surface area to make sure your eyeshadow is nicely blended and there's no harsh lines. I'm grabbing some of that cream contour with my fluffy brush, and I'm just putting this in Miriam's crease all the way around the front of her nose as well. This is just used as her transition shade and also to warm up her eyelid. I'm not going in with too many eyeshadow colors here. We are going more of like a bronzy look, and I'm mixing this with some powder bronzers. Here I'm topping it up with the MAC Cosmetics bronzer in Sun Kissed. I'm pretty sure. I'll double check and I'll put it in the description below. And just lightly blending that and focusing this darker shade more on the outer corner of the eyes and flicking it out all the way towards her temples. For this next part, when I'm doing the matte nude eyeshadow on her lid, I was thinking of doing concealer a little bit, like a light layer of concealer before applying the matte shadow. But then I thought about it and I'm like, I didn't want it to be too defined, and I didn't want it to look like a cut crease, like a full-on cut crease. So I wanted it to look a little bit more softer and effortless. So I went in with the MAC Studio Fix NC15. So instead of an eyeshadow, I went in with the face powder. 2 reasons. 1, it's a little bit more full coverage, and 2, it looks a little bit more airbrushed because it is a face powder, so it's meant to give that little bit more extra coverage and makes the eyes look a lot more open. Then I went in with my Rimmel by Jihan black pencil liner. And here I'm just drawing a very thin line on the roots of her top lash line. It doesn't really have to be too clean, as long as it's as thin as possible, because then I go in with a very thin eyeshadow brush and a matte black eyeshadow to kind of smudge it out and then diffuse it on her lash line, and it kind of looks a little bit more smoky rather than too defined. But also that matte eyeshadow does allow it to be set and make sure that the black liner does not move all night. As always, as I'm measuring the angle of Miriam's eyeliner, I'm asking her to look straight ahead at the camera or if there's a mirror in front, and just making sure the angle I do draw the liner lifts her eyes and doesn't drag her eyes down. If I was to ask her to close her eyes while drawing the angle, most likely when she opens up her eyes, it's not going to be the same angle that's going to lift, and it may droop her eye down or maybe too straight and make her eyes look too small. So obviously, depending on what your client wants or what you want on yourself, if you're doing your own makeup, it's always great to keep your eyes open to measure the angle, and then you can close your eyes to clean it up and make it as smooth or thick or thin as you want it to be. Now going in with false lashes, when it came to decide which ones to use, I did think about the first time I did her makeup. I used a half lash and a few clusters, absolutely loved it. It did look a little bit more natural, but also didn't make her eyes look smaller. So that's exactly what I wanted to achieve today, but a little bit more dramatic without being over the top. So in saying that, I did choose to go with our snatched lashes in style 1.0, which is the most natural, thin, fluffy version of our snatch lashes. And I did cut quite a bit of lashes on the outer end, so the length wasn't too long on the outer end of her eyes and did not droop her eyes down. And also, I love the way these lashes look because I feel like it just flowed with her eyeliner and the angle that we created it. So it looks like quite effortless and doesn't look out of the ordinary on her eyes. You'll see later on, I did decide to go in with a few long clusters on the outer end to give an extra lift to her eye. But we decided to go on with the base makeup and then come back and have a look at the whole makeup look and see if she could carry a little bit more lashes on the outer ends. But when we get to that, I will explain that more in depth as well. Now, once I've blended a really good amount of moisturizer, and yes, I do like to go in with quite a lot. When I tell you I go through moisturizers more than any other product in my kit, I'm not kidding you. I'm buying a new moisturizer every month probably. And all my clients always freak out about how much moisturizer I use on their skin. They're like, but my skin's oily, or like they feel like it's not gonna last. I'm like, trust me, wait till you see how your makeup looks at the end. It's gonna literally look like skin and it's gonna feel so lightweight, which is the biggest benefit from it. Then I went in with some eye cream, and I like to fan all that product into the skin, and I leave it for about 5 minutes because I don't wanna go in with any cream products, any concealers, any foundations, nothing, until I feel like it's really synced in within her skin, because then it's gonna just change the formula of the creams that I'm applying on her face. Now I'm grabbing some of that same cream contour product, the Motor Times Crystal Case shade number 8. I think this is perfect shade for Miriam's face, and also it's not too warm where it looks too orangey compared to her skin tone, and it's not too cool where it looks muddy or dirty. So I'm just applying this on the perimeter of her forehead and blending that in. And I kind of let the forehead sit, and I'll come back to it and set it once I finish the rest of her face. I decided to go in with her brows as well, so I just used one shade lighter than her brow hair color and lightly filled in any sparse areas without making them look too dark or too blocky. Now before I went in with her concealer shade, I used my color corrector in a peachy salmon color, just so I don't end up using too much product and it doesn't feel cakey under her eyes. So this is going to counteract her darkness before we apply any concealer at all. And then as you can see here, I'm placing shade number 3 only on the inner corner and outer corner of her eyes. This is where I want most of the concealer to sit to highlight and lift her under eyes. And then with the leftover on the brush, I'm bringing it to the center of the eyelid and dabbing it down towards her cheek. I just realized I said eyelid. I meant under eye, sorry. Obviously, I haven't had my coffee yet. Okay, what are we up to now? So now we have placed it where we want it under her eyes. And what I'm doing now, as you saw, I did dab it in rather than swiping. So swiping, I kept that, sorry, that's my phone, someone's messaging me. Swiping, I keep more for on the sides of her nose just to start her nose contour. And then also when I'm swiping against her liner, just to carve it out and make it look a little bit sharper. And now I'm applying that same concealer under her cheekbone contour. I know there's no contour at the moment, but this is just like reverse contouring. So I haven't done the cream contour, but I know where I'm gonna place it. And by applying the concealer there, I'm just starting with the highlighting section. And then I know exactly where I'm going to put my cream contour above that. Now onto the other eye, doing the same step, and as you can see, I'm just dabbing that in and swiping on the sides of her nose. I find for this step I prefer using a flat concealer brush that's quite wide, like the one I'm using here. This one's from Ronya Makeup House. It's probably my favorite one to date. It just allows me to cover a larger surface area in a smaller amount of time, and also the flexibility of the actual bristles are perfect for how I like to apply makeup. And now I'm going in with the cream contour stick, the exact same one, shade number 8. So we use this on her eyes, on her forehead, and now for the rest of her face. I like to use always the same shade undertone, or if I'm going a little bit deeper for certain areas, I would use it more on the perimeter or the corners of her face to deepen the contour and the shadow. But always using the same product for her eyes for the transition. Everywhere else just allows to make the makeup look more kind of, how would you say, just looks like more complete and like matches. There's a word for it, like the uniformity. I don't know. You guys know what I mean. Like it just looks complete and effortless. Even when it comes to blush, which I will do soon, I would use whatever powder blush I use on her cheeks. Once I finish the whole makeup, I would use that same powder blush on her eyelids, just through her brow bone, or her brow bone, sorry, and her crease, or a little bit on her nose, chin, forehead, like just a touch of it. It just makes everything look like one complete work of art. And I've just here used our Moderate Tones Krystal K cream blush. This one's in shade number 2, which is a nice warm pink, baby pink undertone. We have a cooler baby pink undertone as well, which is number 1, which I was going to use on top of this, but I feel like it was a little bit too light for her skin tone and I didn't want it to wash her out. And I love the way this looked on her face. So I just kept it with shade number 2. And now going back in with my clean flat foundation brush, and I'm applying a lot of pressure when it comes to the contour on her jawline, because this section we definitely don't want it to look harsh. We want it to look as soft as possible. But then you'll see when I do get to blending the contour on her cheekbones and her blush, I use a little bit of a softer pressure. Now you might not be able to really tell just by watching the video, but that's the way I do it, is using lighter pressure on the cheekbones just to make sure we're not over blending. Because the second we overblend, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of underpainting and bringing that warmth and color to the face within one layer. Because then you have to go in and use more layers and making the makeup more thicker. And she may feel like it's a little bit too cakey or just thick for her skin. Now another thing I always do is before I set the face, I will always go in with a clean beauty blender, or if I want to add a little bit of leftover foundation, if I want to add that bit more coverage to the whole face, I will blend everywhere with my beauty sponge. This will just make sure everything is seamless, there's no harsh lines, and I just prefer doing that than with a flat brush, where I feel like the flat brush is perfect for more so blending, the original underpainting technique. Now I'm going in with a small defined brush, and this is not so much to add coverage, but I wanted to deepen, as I mentioned before, if I want certain areas to be a little bit darker, I deepen the contour just right against the outer perimeter of her face, just to make the shadow look a little bit deeper. Sorry guys, I realized in the last couple of takes the mic was very muffly. I think my laptop was overheating, so it was making a weird sound and it was picking it up on the mic, but I have let it rest and now we are back. Now I am setting Miriam's under eyes. I did spray her face with some setting mist before I did this step. I don't know why I didn't get it on camera, but I used the Morphe setting mist for that. And now I'm using the Huda Beauty. I chose to use Cherry Blossom by Huda Beauty, but then I also mixed it with Ben Nye shade Fair, which is also a loose powder, but the powder is a little bit more finer compared to the Huda Beauty, but I like it that it's a lighter pink undertone. So Huda Beauty, yes, is pink, but it's more brighter, where the Ben Nye is a little bit more fairer. So I felt it worked perfectly for Miriam's undertone. And so I set her under eyes first, and then with the leftover on the powder puff, I did blend a little bit on her center of her nose and on the center of her forehead. Now going in with a little bit more powder to define her cheekbone contour and bring it down all the way to her jawline. Now I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a black in the waterline or a brown, but once we got to this step, I felt like doing a dark warm brown, and I think that looks so beautiful on her. I mean, black would look amazing on her as well, but I felt like for this look, it was more very bronzy, and the eyes were mainly the brown and the nude, so I think it would complement her features and this whole look all together. So we did go in with the shade Chestnut by MAC, which is a lip liner, which you can also use as an eyeliner if you want it to be a little bit of a warmer undertone within the eyes. I did it on one of her eyes. I let her have a rest because I didn't want her to get watery or too sensitive, and I went ahead and powder bronzed the rest of her face while we let her eye rest. In this step, I did use that same Ben Nye Topaz loose powder. If you haven't noticed in my other videos as well, I do always like to start with a loose powder bronzer before I go in with a fixed powder. So that's exactly what we did here. And as I've mentioned before, it does allow the bronzer to look a little bit more airbrushed on the face and a lot more smoother with all the parts that we've already blended. And here I am just adding a little bit more of that fixed powder on the perimeter and the corners near her hairline just to deepen that shade again, just how we did that cream contour. Now going in with our Moderate Times K powder blush. This one is in shade number 1, which is a baby pink, and this is a little bit more of a cooler undertone, which I wanted to do because I did choose to go with the warmer cream blush. So just to change it up and so it didn't look too warm on her skin, I went with the cooler light pink powder blush. And I think it looks absolutely beautiful on Miriam. And for the lips, the last time I did Miriam's makeup, we did a brownie nude. But I'm like, let's change it up today. And I wanted it to look like that really nice, plump, natural, like not crazy natural, but more like that reddy, pink, juicy lip type of color. So to achieve that, I always go in with my Kiss Cosmetics lip liner, which is in shade number 25. And I blended that into her lip with a brush as well, just so it kind of was darker on the outer edges and then lightly diffused in the center. And I applied absolutely no matte lipstick or anything, and just went in with my Fenty lip gloss, which is in, I'm pretty sure, shade number 2, the Fenty Glow, which gave it that really nice, juicy, fresh lip look. And just blending that into the lip liner, making sure that the lip liner isn't too harsh, but also still defines her lips and doesn't look washed out at all. Now to finalize everything, I took a step back, had a look at Miriam's face as a whole look, and I realized she needed a little bit more bronzer just on her brow bone so it didn't look too light compared to the rest of her face. And this is the step where I kind of look, okay, does she need a little bit more blush? Does her eyes need to be a little bit darker, etc.? Because this allows you to see the whole look as one, and you can kind of see what her features can handle. And then I went ahead and smoked out her lower lash line. I just used a warm dark brown to smoke it out, and then following that up with an even lighter warm brown, so it looked a little bit more diffused right underneath and brought it a little bit lower. For the highlighter, she's so cute. She absolutely loved this glow. This highlighter palette is from Model. It's the Glow Your Way #1 palette, which I absolutely love. I'm almost finished, I'm pretty sure, on most of the colors. But it gives it like that glass glow rather than that glittery, loose pigment glow. And looks like the skin is very fresh and healthy. Last but not least, I did realize that I want the outer ends of her eyes to be a little bit more lifted. So I just went ahead and added 2 to 3 clusters on the outer end to give her a bit more of that snatched finish to her eyes. I think this is where we finished off. And here we are. This is the final look. I absolutely loved glamming Miriam as always. And I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in our next video.